Okay, today we are working on lesson 16, symmetry in the coordinate plane. So with our opening exercise, you should be pretty familiar with the things that we're going to work on in the lesson. So if you have questions, please make sure that you ask when we're finished. Opening exercise. Give an example of two opposite numbers and describe where the numbers lie on the number line. How are opposite numbers similar and how are they different? So this is what we've talked about before. So think what you know about just opposite numbers on a number line, how they're similar and how they're different. If we use 2 and negative 2, this is something we might say about 2 and negative 2. 2 and negative 2 are opposites because they are both 2 units from 0 on opposite sides of the number line. They have the same absolute value. So extending opposite numbers to the coordinate plane. So this is what we did within our lesson, but we're just going to be writing some things that we learned in our activity at the beginning. So it says locate and label your points on the coordinate plane to the right for each given pair of points in the table below. Record your observations and conjectures, which means what you noticed, what you know is a fact, in the appropriate cell. Pay attention to the absolute values of the coordinates and where the points lie in reference to each axis. So obviously this coordinate plane is pretty small. So you're going to use the larger coordinate plane that I gave you to plot these points. So the first thing that you want to do is plot the points that they're giving us. So we're going to do this first and then see what we notice. So first we're going to plot 3, 4 and negative 3, 4. So grab the coordinate plane. Make sure you have yours ready to go. And think about what we know about the coordinate plane. Use your notes to label it out before you even start. So to label it out, make sure that you are putting each quadrant and what type of points lie in each quadrant to help you out. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that. And you can pause the video and then check your work. Okay, so you should have quadrant 1 labeled in this far top right quadrant, positive, positive. Quadrant 2, negative, positive. Quadrant 3, negative, negative. And quadrant 4, positive, negative. So if we look at what points they want us to plot, we're going to plot 3, 4, and then negative 3, 4. So again, we're looking at those opposites and looking at the symmetry like we did in our opening exercise. So I know if I'm going to plot 3, 4, I'm going to be looking at quadrant 1. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 to the right for a positive x coordinate and 1, 2, 3, 4 for a positive y coordinate. So that's going to be my 3, 4. The next one it has me locate and label is negative 3, 4. So we're looking at how 3, 4 and negative 3, 4 are the same. So I know if I'm looking at negative 3, I'm looking across that x-axis, and I'm going to go to the left of 0. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and then still a positive 4 for my y coordinate, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and I label it right here. I can always fold the paper like we did in our exercise to make sure that it's correct. So those are symmetrical. So we're going to write a little bit about those as we go through the chart, but let's go ahead and locate and label our other points. So if we look, we just did 3, 4 and negative 3, 4. The next one it asks us to do is 3, 4 and 3, negative 4. So again, we already have 3, 4 labeled. Now we need to do 3, negative 4. So positive 1, 2, 3, negative 4 for my y coordinate. So I have a negative 1 and negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Remember, again, I can check that and make sure I went at my x coordinate over to 3. My y coordinate down to negative 4, my points meet here. And so I'm going to label it 3, negative 4. In the last column, it says 3, 4, and then it says negative 3, negative 4. So we're going to plot that as well. So again, I start at my origin. It's negative 3, negative 4. My x coordinate is to the left of 0. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. And that will be my negative, negative quadrant of quadrant 3. So negative 3, negative 4. So So I'm going to be looking at how these are symmetrical and then filling in answers in the chart. So make sure you have your points plotted correctly. Okay, so the first thing it's asking for is the similarities and differences of the coordinates. So if I look at 3, 4 and negative 3, 4, I notice that the similarity is they have the same y coordinate, but their x coordinates have the same absolute value. If I look at the differences of the coordinates, the x coordinates are opposite numbers. So just looking at 3, 4 and negative 3, 4, that's what I notice. For my similarities for 3, 4 and 3, negative 4, they have the same x coordinate. Y coordinates have the same absolute value. The differences of these two coordinates or order pairs are that the y coordinates are opposite numbers. Okay. And then if I look at 3, 4 and negative 3, negative 4, the similarities I notice are that the x coordinates have the same absolute value and the y coordinates have the same absolute value. The differences in these two coordinates are that both x and y coordinates are opposite numbers. So make sure you pause the video and have time to write all that information down, because this is definitely something that you can use on the end of module if needed, or as you're working problems out on your own. And then when you're ready, turn the page. The next part they ask us to compare are the location of them on the coordinate plane, which we also looked at when we did our opening activity. So 3, 4 and negative 3, 4, I went ahead and wrote the points up here so we know what it is that we're discussing, since the chart falls on 2 different pages. Both points are 4 units above the x-axis and 3 units from the y-axis. So that's what we notice about their location. For 3, 4 and 3, negative 4, we notice that both points are 3 units to the right of the y-axis and 4 units from the x-axis. And for 3, 4 and negative 3, negative 4, the similarities in location that we notice are that both points are 3 units from the y-axis and 4 units from the x-axis. Okay, so just noticing the location of those and how they're similar. The differences in location. For 3, 4 and negative 3, 4, one point is 3 units to, that's the word to, sorry about that, the right of the y-axis. The other is 3 units to the left. For 3, 4 and 3, negative 4, one point is 4 units above the x-axis. The other is 4 units below. And then for 3, 4 and negative 3, negative 4, we notice the most differences. And what we notice, and I actually had to go outside my box because it's kind of a lot of writing. One point is 3 units to the right, the other 3 units to the left. One point is 4 units above the x-axis, and the other is below, 4 units below. So this last part relationship between we're going to look at during the exercises rather than write in these boxes. So make sure you pause the video and get caught up on the writing before you move on to the exercises. So for these exercises, it says in each column, write the coordinates of the points that are related to the given point by the criteria listed in the first column of the table. So that's this column. So we have to read this column and then find our answer according to these points that are given across the top. Point S, 5, 3, has been reflected over the x and y axis for you as a guide, and its images are shown on the coordinate plane. Use the coordinate grid to help you locate each point and its corresponding coordinates. So the first given point is S, 5, 3. And S is already graphed for us right over here. So they're asking us, what is the given point that is reflected across the x-axis? Well, I know my x-axis is right here, so the one that's across it would be point M. And point M is 5, negative 3, because it's 5 over, just like S. But it's negative 3, so I have to go negative 1, 2, 3 down from that 5 that I have for my x-coordinate. Then it says the given point that is reflected across the y-axis. So if I look at S and I want to reflect across the y-axis, then I see L is over here. And so point L would be across the y-axis, and point L is a negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, negative 5, 3. The given point is reflected first across the x-axis and then across the y-axis. So this is where I have to start back at S, and I have to go across the x-axis, so over here to M, and then across the y-axis. So that will be over here at A. And A, we know, is in that negative, negative quadrant. So negative 5, negative 3. And the last box says the given point, so the point that you're looking for, is reflected first across the y-axis and then across the x-axis. So the given point is this S, and it says it's reflected first across the y-axis, so that would be here, and then across the x-axis, so that would be down here. So again, that's going to be point A, just showing you that it can be reflected two different ways, negative 5, negative 3. For the next given points, negative 2, 4, 3, negative 2, and negative 1, negative 5, you may work these on your own, or you may get a partner. You may also choose to do them on this small grid, or if you would like to do them on the grid, the coordinate plane that we use, the larger coordinate plane for the first activity, you may do that as well. When you finish these points and you're done, then you want to come back, finish the lesson with the video. When you finish the lesson with the video, raise your hand and I'll come check the points you did here on your own, or whether you do them on your own or with a partner. Remember, you can either do them on this coordinate plane or the larger coordinate plane. So now you're going to pause the video, work with a partner, come back, check your answers with the video, but I also still want to check them, and then you'll do the next two problems with the video. Okay, if you finished working them out on your own or with your partner, then you want to check your answers with the video. So for negative 2, 4, you either plotted it on the coordinate plane, your larger coordinate plane, or you plotted it on the small one. And the given point reflected across the y-axis would be 2, 4. The given point reflected across the x-axis and then the y-axis would be 2, negative 4. And the point reflected first across the y-axis and then the x-axis would be 2, negative 4. So these obviously aren't going to have letters. You're just putting the coordinate pair. For the next column, 3, negative 2. Given point reflected across the x-axis is 3, 2. Across the y-axis, negative 3, negative 2. X and then y, negative 3, 2. Y and then x, negative 3, 2. Negative 1, negative 5. Across the x-axis, negative 1, 5. Across the y, 1, negative 5. Across x and then y, 1, 5. Across y and then x, 1, 5. I'll check how you actually plotted the points when you raise your hand at the end of the lesson. So now turn to the very last part that we're going to work on, 1 and 2. When the coordinates of 2 points are xy and negative xy, what line of symmetry do the points share? So this is kind of what you just learned with your activity. They share the y-axis because the y-coordinates are the same and the x-coordinates are opposites, which means the points will be the same distance from the y-axis on opposite sides. So just showing those opposites within the coordinate plane. When the coordinates of 2 points are xy and x negative y, what line of symmetry do the points share? They share the x-axis because the x-coordinates are the same and the y-coordinates are opposites, which means the points will be the same distance from the x-axis but on opposite sides. When you come to this point, examples 2 and 3, navigating the coordinate plane, we're going to do together as a class. So if you've come to this point, you need to raise your hand so I can check your points plotted from the last exercise. If you're waiting for me to come check your lesson, have your points plotted shown if I'm with another student, and you may get on 10 marks or compass, and I'll be around to check.